Subscribe to Husbandry right now, because this episode cuts straight through one of modern gardening's biggest assumptions. Long before compost thermometers, pitchfork-turning schedules, or tidy piles behind the shed, farmers kept soil fertile for centuries without ever turning compost once. If you're serious about agricultural history, soil biology, and survival-scale food production, this is foundational knowledge. What you're about to hear explains not only how they did it, but why their soils stayed alive while many modern systems quietly exhaust themselves. The idea that compost must be turned is a recent invention. Old farmers didn't manage fertility by building piles, heating them up, and flipping them on a schedule. They managed fertility by feeding soil continuously right where crops grew. The soil itself was the compost system. This approach appears again and again in historical records from Europe, Asia, and Africa, not because it was convenient, but because it worked with limited labour and zero waste. The first principle was surface feeding instead of pile building. Crop residues were left where they fell. Straw, stalks, chaff and leaves were spread thinly across fields and gardens. Nothing was stacked thick enough to smother soil or rot anaerobically. This kept oxygen flowing and allowed fungi to dominate decomposition. Fungal systems break material down slowly and transport nutrients efficiently, which is why these soils stayed stable year after year. Old farmers understood that soil organisms do the turning for you. Earthworms, insects, roots and microbes constantly move organic matter downward. By feeding the surface regularly, farmers let biology mix nutrients into the soil profile naturally. This is why historic soils developed deep, dark layers of fertility without mechanical disturbance. Another key method was layering time, not materials. Instead of mixing green and brown matter in a pile, farmers added materials as they became available. Fresh residues went on top of older ones. Manure was applied lightly and often, never buried deep. Over time, layers compressed, broke down, and merged into soil. This slow stacking mimicked forest floors and grasslands, where composting never stops but is never flipped. One of the most overlooked techniques was root composting. Crops were cut at the surface and roots were left in the ground. Those roots decayed in place, feeding soil organisms deep underground. Each root channel became a pathway for air, water, and microbial life. Modern compost piles miss this entirely, yet root composting was one of the most powerful soil-building tools ancient farmers used. In practical terms, this means resisting the urge to pull plants out after harvest. Cut them low, spread the tops thinly, and let the underground portion decompose naturally. Over seasons, soil structure improves dramatically without ever lifting a fork. Manure management followed the same logic. Instead of piling and turning it, old farmers aged manure passively. It was stacked loosely or spread thinly to weather under sun and rain. Once it lost its heat and sharp smell, it was applied to fields as a surface amendment. This avoided nutrient loss and protected soil life from shock. Another practice that replaced compost turning was living mulch. Farmers kept something growing in the soil whenever possible. Cover crops, volunteer plants, and even weeds were tolerated if they protected the ground. When cut, they became mulch in place. The soil was always fed, always covered, and never starved between seasons. This approach also reduced disease. Turning compost introduces bursts of bacterial dominance and heat-loving organisms. Old systems favoured steady fungal activity, which suppresses many pathogens naturally. This is why historic fields often remained productive without the crop rotations modern systems rely on. To apply this today, start by abandoning the idea of a perfect pile. Instead, feed soil where plants grow. After harvest, spread residues thinly. Add compost or manure as a top layer rather than digging it in. Keep soil covered year-round with mulch or living plants. Allow worms and microbes to handle mixing. One practical example is a vegetable bed. Rather than clearing it bare, cut spent plants at soil level, spread leaves and stems across the bed, add a thin layer of compost, and plant directly through it next season. Another example is perennial systems. Add organic matter gradually, never in thick, smothering layers, and avoid disturbing roots. The deeper lesson here is that fertility is a process, not an event. Old farmers didn't compost for a season. They composted continuously, invisibly, and in place. Their soils stayed alive because they were never shocked, starved, or exposed. If this kind of soil wisdom matters to you, make sure you're subscribed to Husbandry. Share this episode with anyone tired of labour-heavy compost systems and quick fixes, and help keep this knowledge alive by using it, respecting it, and passing it on.